Bree Walker. Welcome to Play Fearless.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We met a few years back at the Winter Olympic Institute.
The H3 Summit back then. I think that was my first one.
Was it?
Yeah.
And it's been you've gone on such a journey since then, and I can't wait to hear how the things you've learnt there. But I wanted to start, I guess, current time, current day. In March this year, you became the first Australian to win a gold medal in the bobsleigh at the World Cup, which is super cool. And you'd also, competed at the Beijing Winter Olympics, also super cool. Which again, we'll talk about the journey that got you to there. But I want to start at the start. I want to start with you growing up. Not far from here, I don't think. Is that?
Yeah, it was out in the Yarra Valley.
Yeah.
So it's not where I'm based now, but I grew up in Mount Evelyn.
Yeah.
And I had a really awesome upbringing. I'm very grateful for my schooling and my friends and my family life that I had out in Mount Evelyn. I grew up doing track and field and horse riding, actually. Yep. Not many people do know that, and I kind of I kept that a little bit of a secret until many years ago.
Why? The horse riding?
Yeah.
Or the track and field?
No, the horse riding. Because I didn't want to be known as a crazy horse girl.
Okay,
but and it was a bit heartbreaking actually. When I did decide to give up horse riding, I kind of just dropped it like that. And because I could see that I was quite talented in track and field, and it also wasn't as expensive. Like if horse riding and equestrian, it's a very expensive sport. And then to get to the next level, obviously you have to invest more money, invest more time and travel and stuff. And ironically, I'm now in bobsleigh, which
I was about to say.
It's one of the most expensive sports, maybe behind Formula One, and I'm sure there's others out there. But yeah, horse riding was getting a bit expensive, and me and my dad just talked, and he's like, "What do you want to do, kid? Do you want to give track and field a good hard crack, or do you want to keep doing this horse riding thing?" And I just kind of had lost the love for it, and so I was like, "Nah, I'm done with horse riding," and I just put that away, and I legitimately packed everything up overnight. And so that's why I just never really told anybody about it, but I've unpacked it over the last few years, and I'm more happy to share it because it was a really cool time in my life. And I also think the skills that I developed in horse riding actually helped me drive a bobsleigh right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. How old were you when you made that decision to sort of let the horse run wild, and you would run on a track? How old were you then?
I was about 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So I was, even back then, I compartmentalized things quite well and harshly, I would say. I just was like, okay, I'm done with that. And I just put that aside, and I just put it back in my memory and put it away. And again, I think that's a kind of skill that has helped me be able to deal with, some pretty hectic and drama-filled moments throughout my career where I've just been able to be like, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to focus on what I need to do here. Yeah. That's why I guess I'm now, open to talk about it all, because I realize that everything on my journey has helped me get me to where I am today.
Yeah. So if we stay with the athletics for a while, because that's, it's a tough gig, athletics. Talk to me a little bit about how you sort of progressed through your teenage years and the events that you were really sort of focused on, and the work ethic. Because one thing that I would say is really evident in you is your work ethic, and I'm wondering, was that always part of your makeup, or and how did that show up through your teenage years when you've got that, but you're also balancing school and you've got other things, as teenagers have going on?
Yeah, I think that was instilled in me from a very young age from my dad. I saw him being such a hard worker just in life in general. And I thought if I want to make it in anywhere in my life, you have to work really hard. So then when it came to track and field, when I was doing little athletics, I was training with the boys. And of course, boys are bigger, faster, stronger.
You can say that. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. When you're younger, it is a thing. But I wanted to beat them.
Yeah.
And because they were my training partners, and there was days that I did, and they were really awesome days, and they were very motivating days, and I just kept working and working and working, but it wasn't always like I loved track and field. I had an on and off relationship with it, for different reasons that would make this podcast far too long to go into. But when I got to my senior years in high school, I noticed that I had a real talent for it. And along with my work ethic, maybe I thought, yep, I think I can achieve my Olympic dream doing this. I was doing 400 meters at the time, but I also did dabble in 100-meter hurdles. And when I eventually got to Doncaster Athletics Club, the coach there, Tom Kelly, I told him I was a 400-meter runner and a 100-meter hurdler, and he's like, you're a 400-meter hurdler. And I said,
no, you misheard.
And I was like, no.
Because that's the hardest event, right? That's got to be the hardest.
And I was like, 400 meters is hard enough. I don't need 10 hurdles in front of me. So I did stick to 100-meter hurdles and 400s. And then one year, Tommy convinced me to do a 400-meter hurdle race, and he was like, "Just do it to improve your 400 meters." That's how he convinced me.
That's how he tricks you.
Yeah, exactly. And I did it, and I did really well, and I actually really liked it. I liked the idea of each hurdle was like you were achieving something, and I could set my race out very tactically to attack each hurdle. And so within my first season, I became state champion. I made it to nationals that year too. And then also I got scouted to go over to the States to go on a full track and field scholarship at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. So it was kind of a bit of a whirlwind. It all happened very quickly for me. And then once I got to college, I was going through a bit because Tommy unfortunately passed away. So I was kind of mourning the loss of him. And I guess I was trying to find my feet with a new coach. And then also I was trying to find my feet in the college system. It's very different than how we run track and field here in Australia. We do it here because we love it and we think we can achieve our goals and everything. But a lot of athletes over there do it just to simply get a degree. And so a lot of them were doing like the bare minimum, and I found it quite frustrating. I also, the training was quite different. I was thrown in the gym, and if you see me now, I'm a little ball of muscle. Back then I wasn't, but I knew if I looked at weights, I would put on weight. And so within that year, just with the combination of like a few different things, and especially the weight training, I had put on weight. And after that 1 year of being at college, I opened up with my slowest 400 that I had done since I was 16. And I was like, well, my purpose was to come over here and get faster because I wanted to make an Australian team. And I was doing the complete opposite. So I decided to head home and try and find my coach and my love for the sport again. And so I was fortunate enough to be coached by Peter Fortune, who was Kathy Freeman's coach. And pretty much he told me I had to get out of the gym and back on the track and just running Ks. And we were just trying to get that little bit of extra weight off me and get some endurance back, so I could work back up to the level that I was when I left Australia. And it was a really hard task, and I knew that the love for track had kind of died a little bit, but I was hoping when I'd get back to the level that I was at and being competitive again, and hopefully achieving my dream of being on an Australian team, that would all come back. But Ford actually, I forgot this until just recently, Ford had actually suggested that maybe I go and try something else. He's like, look at you, you're just like a little stack of muscle. Why wouldn't you try like rugby? And I mean, my dad's heart would sing if I said I'm going to give rugby a go.
So it would sing or sink? Sing.
Yeah. Oh, he's a Queenslander,
yeah,
so
okay,
he would just completely love if I would go and try out rugby. But I was like, no, I really want to really want to go to the Olympics in track and achieve that dream. Like I was very like tunnel vision on that. But watching the Rio Olympics, I saw Kim Brennan win gold in rowing, and they told her story that she was actually a 400-meter hurdler, and she had transferred over to rowing, and now she's gone on to win gold. Yeah. And I just had this moment where I was like, am I going to be able to do this in track? Like, am I going to be able to be Kim Brennan one day in track and field? And the hard answer was no. And because I didn't just want to make the Olympics, I wanted to be a true competitor. And, you know, Sally Pierce and Jana Pittman, they were all huge. Kathy Freeman herself were huge role models for me, and they were being so successful on the world stage. And that's what I really wanted to do. So I thought, well, look, Kim found her talent elsewhere. Maybe I can too. And bobsleigh was something that I always thought I would get into when I would retire from track and field. And
why bobsleigh specifically?
Well, like, it's hard not to speak about cool runnings at this point.
See, I didn't want to bring that up. I thought, you know, it's like, come on down. Everyone brings this up.
Yeah,
but you've gone there.
It's hard not to, you know. Yeah. So they were obviously track and field athletes and transferred over to bobsleigh. But then when Jana Pittman actually went and did it, I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. You know, she was a 400 hurdler like me, and then she transferred over. And so, I'm going to go do that after I finish track. But, you know, I was young. I had a lot more to give. I've been struggling on and off with like a few injuries that were just very frustrating, like little niggly injuries that stopped me from progressing to get back up to that level that I was at before. And so I simply just Googled whether we had an Australian bobsleigh team. Yeah. And at the time we didn't, but they were revamping it for the 2018 Winter Olympics. So I just emailed the federation, and they invited me up to the Talent ID camp in Sydney. Yeah. And I went along. I remember I was sitting in the kitchen and I was looking at flights, and my mum was like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, that's real random. Yeah. And I was like, yep. And I just I pressed buy, and I bought my tickets, flew up there. I've never done anything like that before. It was like, even with college, like everything was still very set out, but this I had absolutely no knowledge of. Yeah. And they said, yep, you have all the great attributes to be a great bobsledder. Would you like to go over and learn how to drive a bobsleigh? And I said, yeah, sure. When do I leave? And they said, you leave in a month. And there was no funding at the time, absolutely nothing. So I had to raise around $10,000 within a month, and I did that through fundraising and amazing support from friends and family. And I got my first sponsor, and I still have Gavin. He still helps me today. And so I think it was October in 2016. I flew over to Whistler in Canada, and went down and learned how to drive a bobsleigh there on the fastest track in the world, which I didn't know at the time. Yeah. But, you know, ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions popping off, and it's sort of like just going back one step. So you've mentioned it a couple of times now, you know, this Olympic dream. And I'm just wondering, like, where did that come from? Because it's what, you know, it's one of them things I think that lots of kids one time or another could be sat in front of the TV watching, whether it's the Olympics or it's a grand final, and they kind of go, oh, I'd love to do that.
Yep.
When does I'd love to do that actually become a driving motivator? Like, what was it for you that was actually, no, this is more than just a kid saying, I want to do it. I want to do this. And, you know.
I think so there was a few influences I had in my life. Russell Johnson is a very good family friend of mine. He competed at the Atlanta Olympics in equestrian. And so I saw him do it. And because he was like an uncle to me, and I saw him like wearing the Australian uniform and the Olympic rings, and he gave my dad a hat, and I still wear that hat. Yeah. Oh, no, like I wore that hat when I was younger, and we still have it. Yeah. And so that was like really kind of like that's what you get when you're at the top level of your sport. And then obviously watching Kathy Freeman was like so inspiring for me because I was doing 400 meters at the time.
Yeah.
And then, but I think for me where I was like, yep, I want to do it is when I saw Sally Pearson win in Beijing. I think she won silver or bronze in Beijing. Oh my gosh, I should know that. It's like the golden moment for me that I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do this because I was in the midst of my athletic career and I just was like, it's so clear in my memory and I was just so in awe of her in that moment and she was just so excited and I was like, I want to feel that. I want to feel that excitement. I want to be on the world stage, achieving my dreams and achieving the top level, like not only in my sport, but what I can be as a person. And I think that was probably the moment that I was like, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah. And so you set off on that course and then you take a little detour to America and you talk about losing the joy or the love of the sport. I'm wondering if you can pinpoint whether that was, and I'm not saying that it would be one of these three or all of these, there could be other things as well, but I'm wondering, like, was it the drop in performance? Was it the coaching style? Was it the people around you? Was it just being so far from home?
I think it was all of the above.
Yeah.
For sure, it was all of that. I think a lot of why I do sport is because I actually enjoy it. And I always perform better when I'm having fun, I'm happy, I'm enjoying it, I'm surrounded by good people because it's a journey, right? And I think that if you're not enjoying the journey, then when you get to the destination, it's kind of it's not that satisfying. But I'm all about looking back on the journey once I've achieved that goal. And that's why I think like Placid was so special to me this year because I really just loved the season that I had and the journey that I was on to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's, throughout that year at college, I just didn't have that pure joy at doing what I loved.
Yeah.
And I think I came back and I was looking for that and hoping to find it again. But I didn't quite find it. Even though I was surrounded by great people, when I did come home, Fort really supported me. I had some great training partners who are still very good friends of mine. But yeah, it just didn't quite hit the same.
Yeah. So you go to Sydney, you do your testing, they go, yeah, you're in, you got to leave in a month. You go and talk to me about, because this is the way I think about it, right? Not many people, well, I'm just trying to think of like the danger. I'm going to the danger part, right? Not many people, die, let's put it that way, on a track and field scenario.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But winter sports, it's a different level of, it's not just competition. It's genuinely dangerous.
Oh yeah, all of the sports It's mad.
Right?
Even curling. I did
Come on, curling.
No,
How's
I
that
did
dangerous?
curling the other week.
Bruise your toe or something?
No, you slip on the ice.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But that's a little
That's a pretty low level though.
But seriously, everybody, like every sport in winter sports has like this huge element of danger to it, and bobsleigh as well. But I really didn't comprehend that when I was going over there.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah,
no,
I was wondering if
it
it attracted you or not. You just didn't, it just wasn't even. You weren't even aware of it. You're not thought of it.
Completely not.
Yeah,
right. And I mean, I must say I'm a little bit of a jump first, think later kind of person.
Yeah.
But I just didn't comprehend that. And I don't know whether it was because, and again, this is why I speak about horse riding a lot now. When I was younger, we didn't go by the flash horse that had been well educated and everything like that. Dad would often find me a horse that we could afford, maybe not so well educated, throw me on, off you go, mate.
Yeah.
And this horse, like I had so many horses that had attitude problems and they would buck and they would be rude and all that kind of stuff. And I just like I just rode them.
Yeah.
And I would be on the horse yelling at Dad. I'm like, Dad, I can't do this. And he's like, you've got it. Don't worry. And I think that kind of, I always knew I got it. And so I think that's probably what I took into bobsleigh. I'm like, I don't know what this will be, but I'm pretty sure I got this.
Yeah.
And so I never put myself, I think I subconsciously never put myself into a situation that I don't know I've got.
Okay. But then you have your first run. What's it like going down a bobsleigh run? Because I've not done it.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty gnarly. You know, like you're going at 80 miles an hour, 100 k's an hour, and you know, and bouncing around and flying up. What's it feel like? Like what are the G's on you know, G forces, all that kind of gear?
So when you first start, you start from lower down the track. So I think we start in Whistler. We start maybe at corner 9. So we're quite a fair way down. I think there's 15 corners there.
Yeah.
But when you have your first run, it feels unbelievable fast, so fast, and everything is white, and you're just like being flung left and right. You're going up on walls, you're coming down, you're hitting walls, you're going all over the place. And it's so funny to know now that I've looked back over the last few years at the speeds that I was going at, though, like for my first times, and I was only going 90 kilometers an hour. And if I'm going 90 kilometers now, that is a very, very bad day of training, and we're calling it a day after one run because it's so slow. It feels like you're just like putt-putting along. But yeah, for your first run, you really have no idea what you're doing. And I got to the finish dock, and I go, well, I didn't hate that, so I'm gonna go again. And I went again and again and again. And then as you progress and get better, and the coaches believe that you're safe, because really that's the first thing in bobsleigh. Like you want to make sure that you're going down the track safely. You progress up heights, and you slowly start going up. You go up another run, and then up another corner, and then up all the way up to the top. And I think that was really motivating for me, because I could physically see myself getting better, not only as I got down the track and I didn't hit my head on the on the sled so many times, but I was progressing higher and higher. And then, when I got to the top and I had my first run down from the top, I remember that so clearly. I remember that more clearly than my first ever time in a bobsleigh. And I loved it. I completely fell in love with it. And I was just like, this is for me. This is my sport now.
What is it that you love about it? Is it the adrenaline? Is it that what is it that you know, in a nutshell, that you love about the event?
I think it's the adrenaline that I really do love. I love it when I'm able to put together a run that I've been trying to achieve for so long. And when I fix a corner I've been trying to fix for so long. When I fix a corner to make it better, and I'm driving and I drive out of the corner faster. And there's certain things that you feel inside a bobsleigh when you do hit a corner right, and you get like a big whoosh in the out of a corner.
So you speed up through it. You come out the corner quicker than you went in.
And that's the feeling that I just love and I crave for. And so that's really what I love. And then I also just love, like, you know, being able to just see what I achieve at the end of a run, you know, like, did I get better? Because that's all I'm all about, is just getting better every single day, every single run. So I think there's lots that I love about the sport, but that would have to be the main crux of it.
You went to America with your athletics, and you know, it didn't work out. You have to do a lot of travel, and you have to, you know, you have different people around you, or maybe not so much now, I'm not sure, but certainly at the start, I know that you would have different teammates. You'd be trying out different coaches. You'd be trying to find bobsleigh. You'd find equipment, you know, that a team might lend you or pass down. You know, like it really sounded like, because obviously I met you very early on in your bobsleigh.
It was 2018, or 17. It would have been 17, right?
Really? I can't believe it was that long ago.
Yeah, because it would have been before the 2018 Olympics. So
I think it was just after that, actually.
Or was it just after that?
I think it was after that, because I remember you being filthy that you'd not gone to those.
Oh, well, then Olympics. That's why we talked then.
You were like, it was just like, I can't believe they did.
Okay, well, then it's it was 2018 going into 2018-2019 season.
I think so, And let's talk about that period of time, because you were, without, you know, going down old reopening old dramas, but you know what I mean? Like, you were disappointed that you hadn't gone to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit of a battle. I remember
Yes.
talking to you about, how to get how you're going to get sponsorship and who you've got to, talk to me a little bit about that, because I would argue it's one thing trying to master a craft in something as challenging as bobsleigh, but then actually, it's called Bob Team Walker, like it's
Yes.
your team, you're building a team, you're
Yeah.
finding the coaches, you're getting the equipment, you're managing the sponsorship. Like,
It
there's no
becomes a
team.
business.
Yeah, you're not passing this off. Yeah, talk to me a little about the challenges, not only within the sport, because we'll double down on that in a minute.
Right.
But the outside bit, like the social bit, the getting the team together bit.
Yeah. I look at it as like a puzzle, and you got to find the different pieces of the puzzles to make them all fit. And sometimes the pieces don't fit, and you try and squish them in because maybe they fit. But then you eventually figure out that they don't, and then you have to go find a new piece. But yeah, there's lots of different pieces to the puzzle. I've got my teammates that I need to find. I have my head coach that I need to find. I have a push coach that I need to find. Physical coach that I need to find. I chose to also try and get help from a manager to try and bring in sponsors, because obviously sponsors are a huge part of it, because especially when you met me, there wasn't a lot of funding. I did have a small amount of funding from the OWIA, but everything else was out of my own pocket. So I was I was working 2 jobs. So trying to manage that. I was also studying at the time and trying to finish my degree in PE teaching. And so there was...
Did you finish that?
Yes, I
did.
did. Eventually.
You're one of us.
Oh, my God.
PE teacher as well. So, it's yeah.
We always find each other. But yeah, no, I eventually managed to finish that, but trying to juggle everything is a real task. And it does take it away from your focus with your training and everything like that, and that's really hard. But I knew if I could, get the money, and if I could, finish my degree, I could go away and just do what I love. So there was it was very future looking, and I knew eventually I would find coaches that could maybe take some of the load off me, and I'm very grateful now that I do have that with my head coach Pierre Luders, and then also just the rest of the team around me, because this is the way in Australia. It's probably the way in other countries, but you do have to have some sort of success in order to be able to receive funding and to receive help from institutes. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful now that, from the success that I have had, I now have OWIA and the Queensland Academy of Sport, because that's now where I'm based, up in Queensland. They have a lot of support around me to take off that extra load, so I can go and focus and be an athlete. But there's still elements that I still have to run the business, because as you said, it's Bob Team Walker. So I still am there hiring the coaches. I'm still am there finding the teammates. I still am there, even though we have funding, we ran out last year, so I have to go and find those extra sponsors in order to be able to afford those extra little bits of our season. If I want to go find equipment that's faster, I'll have to purchase that or out of our, maybe in our budget, or it might be out of our budget, So there's so much that goes into it. It's not just going and lifting heavy weights and pulling heavy sleds. There's a lot that goes into my season, but I'm very lucky now that this is now my full-time job, and it has to be, if I want to be competing against those bigger nations that do have a lot more support than me, I have to make this my full-time job in order to be able to not only keep up but surpass them.
Yeah. So let's talk then about the full-time job, the sports side of it. So you mentioned there, you're in the gym. It's a power-based sport. It's what does your let's get a bit nerdy. What does your training look like on a weekly, week-to-week basis? I know it'll be different based on times of season, but generally speaking, what are you? Let's go in season. What are you looking at in terms of in the gym, and then on the track? Well,
let's start to kind of where I am now, because I'm beginning my I've begun my off season for the 2024-25 season. So right now I'm in the gym and on the track. I am in the gym 4 times a week doing different training sessions, and then I'm on the track twice a week.
And when you say the track, that what?
Athletics track.
Athletics track.
And I'm we're just kind of getting some load into my legs, so eventually we can progress into doing a lot of sprint training and running training. In the past year, I had a pretty bad sciatic problem, and so I haven't been able to do so much running. And I really saw that in my push times this year. So I've been able to fix that problem. Yep. And now we're like, okay, well, we've got to look back on what last season was. We've got to get some load in my legs so I don't go and pop a hammy or like have any niggly issues. So we're getting some load into my legs right now. And then when we progress into my new training block that I'm about to go into, we'll start doing a little bit more specific, like accelerations, flying work, maybe some sled pulling, because that's all the kind of stuff that we do when we're on the athletics track. When we're in the gym, we're focusing on Olympic lifting, like squats and deadlifts, and then also doing some mixing in some plyometrics and then some accessory work to work on some of the weaknesses that I have. Yep. So that's kind of what I'm doing when I'm doing my dryland training. As we progress through the off season, we start adding in some push training. So then that's when I'm at a push track facility. We don't have them in Australia, so I tend to have to travel overseas. When I was living in Germany, I was going to their push tracks that they have there. I'm now kind of like mainly based in Calgary in Canada. And so that's where I'll be doing a lot of my push training this summer. Well, it's like, Northern Hemisphere summer. And then when we move into season, that's when obviously we add in sliding. And so then that's when we've done the majority of my physical training in that off season. So when we progress into sliding is our main focus. We're getting in our push work when we're at the track sliding. And then to accompany that, we will then go into the gym and do some lifting, or we'll go out onto an athletics track if we have the availability to, but often we're just even in car parks just running. Right. It's a very like rogue sport. It's a little bit old school, but just as long as you get in the work, that's all that matters. So then when we go into racing, again, less physical training will happen because we're trying to peak for those races, and then especially the highlight event being world champs or Olympic Games. Yeah,
and obviously it sounds like there's a lot of physical work going on there. How important is the recovery aspect for you?
Oh, huge. Yeah. My coach is my head coach is very, and even my physical coach, they're very focused on energy conservation. And so they really want me to conserve as much energy as possible so I can focus on like what we're meant to be doing, which is sliding, because that takes a lot of mental energy, and if you're physically tired, you're also probably mentally tired too. So we try and spend as little amount of time, doing sled work, because that's another thing that you need that is added in once we're on season. It's so many hours in the garage, like tinkering around with the sled, but we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. Traveling, obviously, it adds to that. So we have to drive around our sleds all over Europe. And so that takes a lot of energy away too. So we're really, I double down on my recovery when I'm on season because I know the importance of it. And I've seen how that impacts my performance, especially last season when I really found what works for me in terms of recovery. Yeah.
What does work for you? What
I do a lot of leg compression work to keep the blood flowing. I do a lot of meditation and mindset stuff, which is a little bit different. But I make sure I nap, or I do yoga nidra. That's a really big thing. That's just makes me feel so energized. Red light therapy is another one that I use. I really like that. Eating is huge for me. and drinking water is another big thing that really helps. And sleep. I will admit I'm not a great sleeper. I think a lot. Keeps me awake at night. But I've seen the difference that it does make. And so just getting good quality sleep, and I do different things to help me to have a good quality sleep. And so they're probably the main things that help me recover best.
Yeah, you touched on it there, the mindset piece, and that's certainly where I want to sort of travel now, because we spoke before about the danger side of the sport, and there was an article written about you, I forget, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, which I saw in the paper, where the title was sort of like, feel the fear and do it anyway.
One of my favourite books.
Yeah, by Susan Jeffers, right? Yeah. And it's I'm really interested, because I know we met sort of talking about the mindset piece to start with, and then obviously you've gone on and done a lot of work with Lydia and whatnot. So I'm just interested in that. I mean, a real easy, well, not easy, but probably hard question is like, when you think about the mindset required to do what you do, what is it?
It is like you have to have a bulletproof mindset. And I learnt that very quickly in my bobsleigh career, hence why I came to you. Before I met you, I didn't know that there was people like you to help me with my mindset. So I think I read books. Yeah, I did, because I was.
You'd heard of books?
Yeah, no.
yeah.
Mindset books. Yeah. I wasn't a reader when I was younger, I do admit, but I read a lot when I was in college, and but they were just self-help books. Yeah. And so it was just helping me like see myself differently. It didn't have anything to do with sport, but I really enjoyed that. And then when I, didn't make the 2018 Olympics, I knew I needed to level everything up in every way. And I found a German coach. I was going to move to Germany to work with him. And I was like, all right, tick that, like the physical box. And then I was like, all right, the mindset box. And that's when I met you. And I was like, okay, this is the area that I need to really double down on, because I haven't worked on it before, but I know that it's so important. I don't know. I'm not sure if some people told me, but I just had a feeling that this was so important, especially for this sport. And so that's when I started learning. I started reading different books. I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins. I did so much like internal work and to just try and figure out how my mind ticked. And then when I was heading, and then I like sport psychs and everything like that. But I found sport psychs quite frustrating because I just felt like I was talking about my problems all the time and not really having any solutions. And I hate that. I'm especially somebody, if you come to me with a problem, also come to me with a solution. And I'm also like that. If I have a problem, I'm going to give you some solutions. It may not be what works, but at least I come to you with something. And so I was getting quite frustrated, and I saw Lydia do an Instagram story where she said what she did for a living, and one of it was a mentor for athletes.
So for the benefit of people listening, Lydia Lasilla?
Yeah.
So former winter athlete herself?
Yes, she's gold medalist at Vancouver Olympics in aerial skiing. And
also dangerous sport.
Unreal. If anybody has a Saturday night that they need to kill, watch her documentary, Born to Fly, and they're mad. They're unreal. And the amount of times she crashes and just has to get up, go again and again and again. And I remember watching a documentary for the first time. I'm like, are you serious? Is this what you did?
Yeah.
But for me, what I saw in Lydia was what I wanted to achieve. She wanted to do this crazy, unbelievable jump that no woman has done before. And I was like, well, I want to do something that not only no woman has done before, but no Australian has done before. And that was to win an Olympic medal and in bobsleigh. And so I was like, yep, I'm going to get in contact with her. And again, back then, I'm a bit ballsier now, but back then I didn't just, message Olympic champions.
On Insta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just messaged her and I said, hey, I'm really interested in talking with you and learning what you know. Can we maybe have a chat? And we got on a phone call. She was in Finland, I was in Germany, and instantly we clicked.
Yeah.
And she was on my level, and I was like, yep, you're going to help me. And we started working together as I headed towards the 2022 Olympics. And it wasn't just that I wanted help with mindset, but I also wanted guidance with how I navigate an Olympic year and an Olympic Games, because it was going to be my first Olympics. And so I, in every way, shape or form, she helped me achieve what I did in Beijing. Because she was there also as a commentator, and in between takes she would call me and she'd just be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm all right." But yeah, she's the best, and a lot of my success is dedicated to the work that she's done with me for sure.
What have you learned about yourself? Going, like you mentioned before, doing the work inner work. What are some of the big learnings that you've had about yourself?
I would say the biggest thing is that I am not my thoughts. That's been a huge thing for me, because you have thoughts that, fleet in and out of your head all the time. But sometimes you latch onto a thought. And I would do that quite often.
Give me an example.
You can't lift that weight. And it wouldn't be that it would be even before I even tried. And then I just had the realization, I'm like, I haven't even tried that. How do I know? Like, why have I psyched myself out before I've even tried? And so realizing that your thoughts are not you has been a really big thing for me, and has helped me, because like I said before, they come in and out all the time, and you just let them. And I just let them always come in and out, and don't attach myself to a thought. And I really learned that this year, because I always thought that if you were mentally strong, you wouldn't have these thoughts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I was like, damn it, like I'm doing all the work, and I feel like I'm so mentally strong. Why do I still have these thoughts? And then I halfway through last season, I had the realization, I'm like, they're always going to be there, Bree. They're always going to be come in and out, whether it's like, from an old blueprint of way of thinking or a new thought or whatever. They're just going to be there, but you don't have to pay attention to them. And then I would be sitting there in the locker room, and they would just come in and out, and then all of a sudden it would go quiet because I'm not paying attention to them anymore. And then that has been where I've been able to go into the zone and really focus on what I need to do. And I've been able to replace those thoughts with thoughts that I want to think. And then you start repeating those thoughts, and then they get louder and louder and louder. And then at the end of the time, you're just like, for me anyways, I'm just having an absolute party in my head. And I'm ready to go. I'm so fired up. I mean, I may not look it because I have my headphones on and I've got blue steel face going on, and it it looks like I'm super angry, but I'm like so happy and I'm so psyched and ready to go.
What are you telling yourself? Do you have a mantras? Do you have like the same kind of playlist, so to speak, in your head, or is it different every time? Is it going?
It's pretty similar every single time, because I'm a very routine based athlete. I learned that the hard way this year at World Champs, that my routines are very important. Lydia is always, she slapped me over the hand when I told her that I went out of my routine at World Champs. But I'm very routine based in my actions and then also the words that I say to myself. And then it also just will depend on the day. There might be, I might tweak things here and there to get myself going. But I do find that having a set routine in what I say and what I do ultimately produces the best result.
I think there's so many things there that I think any athlete listening, but certainly like an emerging athlete or someone who struggles with doubt, those thoughts. I thought the first thing you said there, which is a beautiful insight, which is, I thought because I was mentally strong, I wouldn't have these thoughts.
Yeah.
That for me is like, that's one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, of what this is about. Of course you're going to have these thoughts. You're human.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I was hearing a lot of really top level athletes saying that they were doubting themselves in certain, like when they're preparing for a certain event or something like that. I'm like, man, I thought you were so strong and you're still having these thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not mentally strong. They're just always going to be there.
Yeah.
And they can just manage them better.
Yeah.
Some people listen to them. Some people latch on to them.
Yeah.
The ones who don't are the ones who succeed.
Yeah. And the ones who have a deliberate practice of replacing those thoughts, right? Because you can't think about two things at once. So having the mantras or the process that you have created and being deliberate about, okay, there's that thought, sweet, here we go, but here's my process.
Yes.
And we're into it.
Yeah, and I do that with Lydia too. We have a situation list. And so I write down all the things that could potentially happen. And then I write down what I want to do instead of, like just letting it happen to me. It can be physical things. So like just say, for example, if the track is really fast that day. People get kind of a little bit spooked when some tracks are really fast. But I have it in my situation list, what I say to myself and what I do. And then it's funny, I always look at my list, but it's all physical things that happen, like whether the track's fast, whether it's raining, what position I'm sitting in after the first heat, all that kind of stuff. But then as I go down, it's more mentally what happens. Like if I think this, if I feel this, and then I have a replacement for those things too. So it sounds like a little bit over the top, but it's what helps me to succeed.
Yeah. How did you start doing that? What was like the entry point to doing those?
It would be
kinds of
working with
things?
Lydia.
Yeah.
For sure. Like definitely. She took me to a whole new level of mindset. And I think I wish we had 2 years leading up to the Beijing Olympics because I think experiencing that Olympics with her opened my eyes up to so much more that I didn't uncover with her within that first year.
Yeah.
I competed at the Olympics and I was just like, I wasn't like, I now realize I really wasn't ready, but mentally I thought I was good.
Right.
But I was like, oh no, we have a lot more work to do here. And it wasn't drastic, like I don't think I could say like, I lost the plot and all that kind of stuff. No, it was just that I didn't know that I'm not my thoughts.
So that's post-Olympics. That was post-Olympics.
Post-Olympics, yeah. I didn't know that my routines were very important. Those kind of things. And it excited me though, because I was like, I came 5th at those Olympics. And I know I have so much more that I need to work on, and what can I achieve over the next 4 years doing this kind of work. Yeah.
And when you say 5th at the Olympics, I mean, that's brilliant by any standards. But when we talk about the separation of 5th and the podium,
yes,
like in terms of splits, what are we talking about?
Well, I mean, the second day I had the second fastest run both heats. Yeah. And so I don't know what the split was between like in each heat. Yeah. There was a fair bit of a gap to certainly to first. Yeah. But to bronze, not too much. Yeah. And so there would have been a chance for me to be able to jump to bronze if the 2 girls in front of me made the mistake that I made in the first heat when I came down 10th. Yeah. And because I had been doing really well in training that whole week, and I could sense my team, we knew that was possible, but we didn't really know it was possible. Yeah, and you could sense that everyone was trying to stay calm. Yeah. I know my team now because I've now experienced 2 world champs with especially my head coach and last season. I know my team now wouldn't behave like that. We would just proceed as normal. Right. And so then when I came down 10th, I was like, man, in that first heat at the games, I was like, man, you've made a pretty hard task for yourself here, girl. And
Is that how you felt, or was it a bit more?
no, that was how I felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to fight back here.
Okay, yeah.
And I think for me, that was also the state of mind I had been used to. I'd never been used to, competing from the front. I'd always been used to competing from the back and working to the front. And being like the underdog. And that's what, everyone was always calling me the Australian underdog and everything like that. And so that was kind of, what I embodied. And so as soon as I put myself in that position, because I did, I knew how to behave. Yeah. And I knew, and I fought back. Yeah. And it ultimately meant that I didn't achieve my goal at winning a medal, but it also made me realize like, oh, you were behaving in like from that idea or that, I don't even know how to describe it, but like that novel narrative that like you and everybody has been saying of you, and we need to change that.
Yeah. So you need to learn to compete as a front runner,
right?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I need to be hunted rather than be the hunter. I'm a great hunter. Yeah. I'm also now getting better at being hunted.
Yeah. That's really interesting language. We use a lot of that talk with the NRL team I work with, and we just only as a point of interest, not to say anything other than that, but we actually try and talk about always being the hunters, always. They've won the last 3 premierships, so they are being hunted. But what we found was interesting was that mindset can sometimes elicit a negative as well, like they've got to protect what they've got. So it's just an interesting
defending.
Yeah,
I learned that's actually what I learned from World Champs this year was. So my coach gave me because World Champs is over 4 heats, and so is the Olympic Games. He gave me a plan. I'm not going to tell that plan because that's a secret.
Yeah.
But I am going to say he said you can never defend, Bree. You always need to attack.
Yeah.
And as soon as and I was in second place after the 3rd heat, and I didn't quite comprehend that.
Right.
And in that moment, instead of getting excited, I wanted to calm my nerves. And then I went into a defense mode.
Right.
And
to protect what you had, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I came down and I made the smallest mistake. And in past seasons, you can make that small mistake and not move positions. Maybe drop one, but not really move any positions. But right now, monobob especially is so competitive that you make one small mistake, you don't just drop one place, you drop places.
Yeah.
And so I made this one small mistake in that final heat and I dropped from 2nd to 4th. Yeah. And it broke my heart. Yeah. And my coach came to me at the end and I just said, I defended. And he goes, yeah, you did. And he was like, unfortunately, you need to have that experience in order to be able to learn from that. And it just so happens to be at World Champs, but it's better here than where we want to be in 2 years' time. Yeah. And I'm very big on learning from my experiences. And it was ironic that the last race in Lake Placid, I was in the exact same position that I was at that World Champs, but I was sitting in 1st. And what also threw me off at going into that 4th heat at World Champs was the crowd was so loud. And most of my World Cup career has been in COVID. Right. So there's been barely any crowds. Yeah, wow. And I could hear the commentator and the crowd was so loud and it really took me out of my zone. Yeah. And in Lake Placid, I was sitting in 1st and Alana Myers-Taylor, who is the American bobsledder, she was sitting in 2nd. And obviously being on home turf, the crowd is loud, the commentator's loud. And I was like, we're here again. Yeah. I'm like, but this time you know what to do. Yeah. And I composed myself. I stayed in the zone, and I went up to the start line, and I just kept repeating my mantras and everything that I needed to do. And I went down, and I didn't realize, because I don't normally look at the timesheets between heats, but I didn't realize that Alana was only 200ths ahead of me in that 1st heat, and by the end she was 2/10. Oh, sorry, no, she was 200s behind me, and at the end she was 2/10 behind me.
Yeah, right.
And I laid it down because I knew what I needed to do, and I wanted to. I really wanted to just rectify what happened at World Champs. And it was so satisfying because not only did I win that race, which was my first World Cup win, I had won in World Series before, but when monobob has officially become World Cup, I haven't won a race yet. But winning that race also bumped me from being 4th overall to becoming 2nd overall. And that was one of the biggest goals that I wanted, because last year I didn't compete on World Cup too many times because me and my coach wanted to develop a really good relationship, and we wanted to focus a little bit more on developing my driving skills. But I saw girls win World Crystal Globes, and I said to Pierre at the end of the season before, I said, I want one of those. He goes, all right, well then that's going to be the goal then. And so to be able to, win my first World Cup and then also to come away with a crystal gold just ticked two huge goals for me that season. It was just so satisfying.
Yeah. You mentioned before you sort of went into the mantras piece, you composed yourself. I'm wondering how you do that, because obviously like the noise, the commentators, that you know it's a moment, right? You know this is a moment that matters. So before you even go to them, I guess what I'm asking is, do the mantras compose you, or do you need to compose yourself first and then go into your mantra process?
I compose myself first, and I do that through breathing.
Yeah.
And it's all just about, I just focus on my breathing. I make it really deep. I make it really calm. Like my heart is beating 1,000,000 miles an hour, but all I'm doing is just focusing on my breathing. Yeah. And that's become a real centering point for me. Yeah. And it keeps me very present. And then once I feel like I'm very present and in the moment, that's when I start like talking to myself, and I just say the same things again and again and again. And I don't let my eyes wander. I focus on my sled, I focus on my coach, I focus on me. And that also keeps me like very in my space.
Yeah. Just again, because what you're focusing on is the constants, right? Your sled's always there. Yeah. You're always there. Your coach is always there. Yeah. Whereas sometimes, the opposite of that is being distracted by the variables in the crowd. Oh, there's a sign. There's someone's written something, or there's that person's thrown abuse or whatever it might be. So, I just really like, I want people listening or watching to be able to hear that. I'm sure prior to doing this, like 10 years ago, I'm sure people say, just focus on your breathing, Bree. And there's part of you which goes, come on. Sometimes people, they say, what can you do? I say, focus on your breath. And they look at you and go, are you kidding me? That's all you've got.
It sounds
it sounds so glib, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it also just sounds a little bit woo-woo. Yeah. They're like, that's for like yogis or, monks on top of the mountains. Yeah. But it's really a big centering point for me. Yeah. And it's really hard to kind of do that just when somebody, like you said, just when somebody says, just focus on your breathing. Yeah. But when you have been able to center yourself from using your breath, you're like, oh, that's how that works. So it's...
And when you've trained it, right? When you've learnt to do it and you've done it repeatedly.
Oh, it didn't work for me the first time. Lydia always used to tell me, focus on my breathing. And I'm like, I don't get you.
I've breathed all my life. Like, how hard could it be?
Yeah. It was actually when I started working with her yoga teacher. Yeah. We did a lot of breath work in my yoga because... last season, like I said before, I was dealing with a lot of sciatic pain. So I went to... And saw Duncan, who's a great yoga teacher, and he was trying to get me into these positions, but I couldn't quite do that. And so he would just tell me to breathe, and then all of a sudden everything would relax, and I would just move into that position because I'm actually quite flexible. I used to also do dancing when I was younger. But I didn't realize I was that flexible, because my muscles had been so tight and had so much tension for so long. But within sessions, I was unbelievable flexible again, like I was doing dancing back in the day. And it was all because of my breathing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so then I played around with it throughout the season. I figured out that that's really what works for me.
So we've sort of touched a lot on the danger aspect of it, the need to compose ourselves in these moments. I want to show a video of you in action, and it's one that I've used many times actually in presentations about the importance of being able to stay focused. And I just want you to watch it, and then we'll talk about it if that's all right. So
we're watching the full video. All right.
It's not. It's edited slightly, but yeah, it captures the essence of it. So.
Normally, next up, Bree Walker of Australia, 6'11". That's a much better start than she produced.
But the start was spectacular, Martin. Second best start, 6'11". Still 1800s behind Cynthia Appia.
She's one of the best starters in the field. She's one of the best monobob drivers as well. Oh, and she crashes it. Hunkered down inside. Does it come back up? No.
Right here. Oh,
yes, it does. Oh, and she was ready for it too as well. She popped right back up. What unbelievable cold-blooded presence of mind when you're skating upside down at 80 miles an hour to feel that it's popped back up and to start driving again? You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Tell me about, first of all, that track in particular.
Altenburg.
Yeah, Altenburg, because it's a bit
of Altenburg.
Yeah, and then tell me just a little bit about the history you've got with that track, and then I want to dial into that particular moment, and then what's happened subsequently.
So that was World Champs back in 2021. I had already crashed out of the training in the 2-man, and we decided not to compete. And then that was the third heat of the monobob World Champs. I think the commentator said that, like, I had won a few races that season already, so I was doing quite well. It was the COVID year, and so that was kind of a little bit of a breakout year for me. I had won the first World Cup that was ever televised for monobob. In Eagles, and then I hit a podium, I think, somewhere else, and so we were like, okay, there's a chance to, win a medal at World Champs. Again, very naive to it all, but like, I'm winning medals on World Cup, I can maybe do it at World Champs. I don't know if many people know, but actually my D-ring broke.
Right. Which is
how I steer. And so
that sounds like an excuse to me.
Yeah,
no, go on.
yeah. And I mean, I'm not one for excuses, so this is why I haven't really made it all that public, because I think so the D-ring actually it's attached to the top of my sled, and it just broke off, and I kind of lost my grip, and it meant that I couldn't steer the sled in the correct spot that I needed to. And so I missed the steer, and then it just it's like a snowball effect. You miss the steer, and if you don't quickly rectify it, you miss it again, and then the sled pops up too early, and then it comes down, and then because you have 3 waves in that corner, and then but if you miss all the steers, you create a 4th wave, which means your sled comes up at the end of the corner, and then you flip. And so when I flipped to the side, it was like, I knew it was happening from far out. I tried to quickly find my D-ring. I found it again, but it was too late. I didn't know I didn't know how to get out of it at that point. And so I'm just on my side, and I think I'd crashed once in a monobob before. But I did pop back up in that one, but I was like, I'm not popping back up here. And then all of a sudden you just feel like a huge amount of G's on you, and then your head kind of flings up. And then that's when I realized that I was up. And I think I'd seen other people crash before, and I'd seen where they popped up, and so I'm like, I think I'm in corner 14. And so I managed to figure out that I was turning right, and so I just managed to get the sled off the wall so I didn't crash again.
This is all at 100 k's an hour on your head, upside down, by the way.
Oh yes,
just to be clear, just for context.
This is all split moment thinking. And then I just I managed to. I get out, but I knew my World Champs was done then, because my sled was broken, and there wasn't much that we could do in between heats or whatever. I also was just kind of like, I'm done here. Like I know that I could probably go down and make it through that corner again, but I've already had to pull out of the 2-man. I'm now pulling out of the monobob. I'm done.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of when I had set the I guess, path for me to have this really shitty relationship with this track.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have a lot of problems on this track. I'm not the only one. There's many, many people over the years. And I was just like, no, I don't want to have this shitty relationship with this track. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go back. I'm going to do it again. I'm not going to let this track beat me, where I'm going to end up, because I actually did enjoy driving it. And I did enjoy when I hit a really good run there. I was like, whew, this track's really fun. I really like it. And I was like, I was like, man, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let it defeat me. But the following season, I went there again, very underprepared for it, so underprepared to go there. I wasn't even driving in my actual sled. I was driving in a sled rental, went down, crashed, went to my teammate. I said, we're done here. I go, I'm not doing this to us again. It happened last year. We're not going to tackle this beast this year. But then, of course, having that experience then added to, this annoying, this very frustrating relationship I had with this track. And so when I got my new coach, Pierre, I said, I'm gonna defeat Altenberg. We're gonna get this. We're gonna do this. And he was like, he was so nonchalant about it, and just like, of course we are. What is that even a problem? Of course you just need to learn in a way that you understand. And so when I went to the track and I slid down for the first time, after him teaching me how to drive it correctly, the first day was completely fine. And it was like I had never slid there before, because I was seeing it differently. And I had also done a lot of mindset work in order to be able to step to the top of the track and be prepared to go down it. It was the second day that was like I was dealing with all the demons from the past.
How did they show up? Just doubt?
No. It was very physical.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very emotional. And I get like this sometimes, and it's not even conscious. It's very subconscious. I can feel it. Yeah. I now know what that is. Back then, I didn't quite know what that was. Yeah. And it was, I'd be like full blown panicking, and I'd really calm myself. At this point, also, we're only tackling monobob. And so I was like, Bree, you've got this. You've always got this. You never put yourself in a situation where you don't got it. So I went down on that second day, and I remember driving back to our hotel with Pierre, and I said, I feel like I need to cry. And he was like, well, cry. I'm like, I don't want to cry. And he sat there at dinner, and he was like, how many crashes have you had here? And I was like, I don't know. And I said a number. And then he was like, holy shit, Bree. Like, you've had a journey here. Like, you're almost dealing with like PTSD. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, a little. And I think also a lot of that emotion that I was feeling on that second day was in anticipation that I'd have to do it in 2-man. And he goes, okay, we're not going to do 2-man. We're only going to focus on monobob here this year. And you're gonna be able to go down in monobob, and it'll be a completely different track for you. And I was like, okay. And instantly I felt calmer. And that first season with Pierre after the 2022 Olympics was just focusing on monobob. And it got to the point where I wasn't just making it down the track, but I was wanting to master the track. And there was like one corner that was like right up to the top of the track where I was losing a lot of speed. I was getting so frustrated. And he stopped me one day. He's like, do you realize how far you've come in such a short amount of time? that like you're so frustrated at corner 3.
Yeah. As opposed to crashing all the way down.
Yeah, like corner 3, corner 4, then you're just you're focusing on just making it down.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
It was also like, okay, but I want to get this corner.
Yeah.
And there was a double header that year, that season in Altenburg, and I was only going to compete in one of them because I wanted a week's rest before we headed to St. Moritz for World Champs. And I decided that I started like, you know, after my camp in Altenburg where I relearned how to drive the track, I said, I want to do both of them. And he was like, wow, okay. Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to do both of them. And I did the first one and I came 5th. And because I made that really big mistake up top and I'm like, man, this is annoying me. This is driving me nuts. And, but then the second race I went again and I really... Me and Lydia do this thing where you talk to your future self, and because your future self has everything that you want. And I really sat with my future self that week. I remember it really clearly and be like, how do I do this? Like, how am I able to achieve this? And we also made a slight change to my sled setup, and that was doing the combination of those two things helped me be able to drive that corner better, and I came 3rd in that next race. And so to come from, you know, not being able to make it down the track to then coming 3rd on a World Cup was just like so exhilarating. And I think if you like go and watch the video of me in that World Cup, I just like took my helmet off and I just screamed. And I mean, like I'm a character when I finish a race, like I'm always up and about. But that was just more of a war cry of just everything that I'd experienced over the last few years on that track. And it was just like so relieving. And I really do enjoy driving that track. And I went back there last season and I drove the 2-man and I watch videos of me driving there. I'm like, wow, that's me. That's me driving that track now in a 2-man sled, you know? We didn't compete in the 2-man in this year because unfortunately we had a crash in Segura and our sled was a little bit worse for wear and we didn't want to and it was 1 week before World Champs, so we were like, we'll set that aside and we'll go forth and we'll just focus on monobob. But I'm really excited to get back there this year because I've kind of just gotten to the point. Pierre said he's experienced it too on different tracks. And he's like, you kind of just get to a point where you're just like, enough's enough. Like I've dealt enough with you. Like we've had our time here, and enough's enough. And I'm going forth as the athlete I am now to a track like I do every other week. So yeah,
it sounds just from listening to you talk about the likes of Pierre and Lydia that you've got the right people around you. Like they understand you. Talk to me just to we want to close this out and talk to me a little bit about obviously a lot of it is about you, and I was wondering actually if part of the whole not wanting to do the 2-man at Altenburg was that actually from a technical point of view, or was it actually just because you had someone else kind of in your care, so to speak? And I'm just wondering what the decision around that was.
It was a combination of a few things. I also, in the 2-man, I have to look after somebody else.
That's and that responsibility kind of pushed you back from wanting to do that at Altenburg, or
it was very much a team decision, right? Pierre always says like, you're somebody else's kid, and I'm responsible for that, and I would hope that people would look after my kid as much as I look after you. And so when he's making a call, I know it's coming from a place where he's really thought about it. In the beginning of our time working together, he made some certain calls, and I smile because it was very frustrating when he made like some calls, and I'm just like, what? Why? Because once he makes a call, and that's it. There's no talking to him. But I'm somebody that I'll always talk. I'll always like have an argument back. But he's made certain calls and he didn't quite explain himself. But and I was frustrated because I didn't have that trust to know that he is making it from a well-educated position. But now when he makes certain calls, I'm like, no, he's thought about it, and he's doing it from the best interest of not only me but my whole team. And then also for me, like, you know, I only actually travel with one teammate. I only travel with my teammate Kiara now, and it's due to because I've got the 2 events, and Kiara only has one training session a week, and then she races on the weekend. So we can actually manage, especially with our low budget compared to the other bigger nations. We can manage with that one teammate, but I have to look after her. I have to take extra care of her, and you know, we really wanted to do well in Winterberg at World Champs, and so I said I think it's going to be better if we don't compete in Altenburg. So you have 2 weeks in order to be able to rest up for World Champs. And because that was a big thing for us, like Kiara wasn't on any funding or anything like that. And if we were to achieve that top 6 or 8 position, she would then jump up into funding, and it would boost our whole program. So it was tactical then from that aspect. Yeah.
And people around you, you know, you're talking about looking after them. So you're in a circle, like, you know, talk to me about the importance of having the right people in your circle.
Oh, it's so important. It's like, it's the reason why we had the season we did last year, because we've been very selective with the people who we let into our circle. You know, and it's not only that they have all the right skills, like they may not have the right skills in the beginning, but if they buy in, I think for me that's a huge thing. If you buy into what we're trying to achieve, then you can develop the skills and learn our sport and how it all operates and everything like that just fine. So yeah, it's really important that if we have anybody who comes on, they buy in and then they give 100% to what their task is, because we're all out here trying to compete with huge nations with lots of staff, big budgets and everything like that. And that makes it really cool when we do achieve something, because, you know, when I'm standing on the podium and I look out and I just see my 3 people, it's my physio, my coach and my teammate, I'm like, we did this. It's not because, you know, and we have a lot of people behind the scenes back in Australia, of course, but like the people who are on the ground, it's just the 4 of us. And that makes it really special. But it means that those 4 people or those 3 people have to be the right fit to make everything work.
Yeah, cool. Well, hopefully everything does work.
Thank
you. Heading off to Calgary tomorrow as we're recording this. By the time it goes to air, you definitely will be over in Canada. What's the vision for this season?
Oh, it's to go bigger and better than what we did last season. You know, more podiums on monobob. I want to tick that goal of winning a world championship medal. For sure, the goal is certainly to win medals in 2-man as well. Kiara and I are really hungry for that. We've gotten close and a few times, but we can see that it's in our grasp. And so we're really going to get after that too. And then another crystal globe, definitely. So yeah, it's pretty exciting times ahead. But all the work has to be done first. So that's what I'm going to go off and do in Calgary.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Bree. Had a blast having a chat and catching up. And
yes,
all the best for the next season and beyond.
Thank you very much.